Okay. Down to business. I got my wild cherry Diet Pepsi, and I got my blackjack gum here, and I got that feeling. Yeah, that familiar feeling that something rank is going down out there.
Welcome to the 7th edition of the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast. I am your host, Dave Brown. Thank you for joining us. It is, as I'm recording this, Monday, the 13th of February, 2017. It's the week of Valentine's Day. I hope everyone hugs your loved ones, man. Go out, the people you care about, even if you're not romantically involved. Give them a high five, give them a hug. And if you know someone that's lonely, spend some time with them. Being lonely sucks. That's something I have to admit I deal with a lot, is feeling lonely and out of place. And it just helps to have someone there. So reach out to people, show some love, be kind to each other. That's what Valentine's Day should be about, not just cards and candy and shit. We've got some great stuff on this episode. We do later on have an interview with Pod from the band Deforesters. They have an album coming out on the 25th of February on Black Numbers Records called Leonard. It is awesome. It is really fucking great. And we're going to play a couple songs from that. And play you my conversation with Pod. Super nice guy. Really down to earth. Great stuff. And also at the end of the show, I'm going to talk about, we have a giveaway. The nice folks at Deep Elm Records have hooked us up with some free digital copies of Light in Motion's newest album, Dear Avalanche, for me to give away. So I'm looking for different ways to do that, and I think I've got an idea for this week's episode. So we'll get to that later on. Now, we opened up the show this week with Always the Rebel from Wolves, 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 and Wolves album, The Cross and the Switchblade. I love this band. I love that album. One of my favorites of last year. And that song speaks to me in so many different ways. Because I don't know about you guys, but I always feel like I'm out of place and out of step with everything. I never feel like I fit in anywhere. And this song hits that perfectly. Before that, or after that, I should say, we had the band Adult Magic from their self-titled debut EP with the song The Beyond. Up next, we have Beach Slang. They just put out a new EP. Here, I Made This For You, Beach Slang fudge, I cannot talk this morning. Let me try this again. Here, I Made This For You, Beach Slang Mixtape Volume 2. It's another great collection of covers, and this is a cover of the classic Jesus and Mary Chain song, Sometimes Always, with the band's good friend Charlie on vocals doing the Hope Sandoval part, and she knocks it out of the park here on the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast.
Just threw it back. I won't get on my knees. Don't make me do that, please. I've been away, but now I'm back. Don't be too sure of that. What makes you sure of that? You went In the morning I wanna wake up, I wanna wake up to the sound of the waves. And I wanna feel it for real, the dead waking up from the sleep of the graves. With nowhere to go, nowhere to go. Yeah, the sun's gonna set on all we've ever known. Capitalism and broken bones. Beaming eyes, our love will tear down every, we'll tear down every wall. Our love will tear down every wall. Oh my God, our love will tear down every wall. Again and again, our love will tear down every wall. Oh, I know.
from EP3, that was Broken Gold with Stay in the Lines. It's a great band featuring members of Riverboat Gamblers from down in Texas. Before that, we heard Airy and the Pure Heart from their Heart Songs EP with Tear Down Every Wall, and the Tim Version's Auto from their split with Dead Bars. Good stuff there. Up next, we have the band Casual from their full-length self-titled album with the song Spent, here on the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast.
Come a little closer, we only get one chance and I wanna let you know right now. where I draw the line. Tonight we die. Well, I feel betrayed. You cost me everything. Do you ever feel the love? Well, I feel betrayed. If I go down, you come with me. Do you ever feel the love? Tonight we ride, we fight, we die. Do you ever feel the love? Tonight we ride, we fight, we die. Do you ever feel the love?
You move. You make one sound. I'll snatch the life right out of you, understand? When you walk, there's one thing you're gonna get a bullet in your back. Wait, that's all. Please,
Well, I feel betrayed. You cost me everything. Do you ever feel the love? Well, I feel betrayed. Singing out, are you legit? Do you ever feel the love? This is my life.
That was the sadly short-lived Edmond, Oklahoma band They Stay Dead from their EP Cursed with Betray. This was a freaking great band. So basically it was three guys who had been in a band called Euclid Crash. Euclid Crash called it a day, and they hooked up with this drummer from also from Edmond named John, who had been in many local bands over the years, one of which was a band called the Lunch Bunch, which I was a big fan of. And they got together and put out 2 EPs and a single before finally calling it a day. And it sucks because they were freaking great. They were that melodic hardcore kind of skate punk sound and just tight as all hell. Really good band. And better than that, 4 great guys. Check it out. They Stay Dead from Edmond, Oklahoma. I highly suggest getting everything they released. Before that, we had the Warning Shots. They have their latest album coming out very soon called Tonight on State Line Records, and the song was Closer, Closer. And before that was the Copyrights from their No Knocks EP, 7-inch they released on Fat Records with the song Don't Want In. This is the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast, and up next we are going to have my interview with Pod from Deforesters. Before we do that, we are going to play a song from their new album, Leonard. We're going to play a song for the Reptoids of Denver International Airport to sing. This also appeared on their self-titled EP, which you can also get on Black Numbers Records. The band has released, to this day, 2 EPs, and this will be their first full-length. The full-length album is outstanding, and Pod is a super nice guy. This is our first interview we're getting to do here on the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast. I am very excited to have him on the show, and it was great talking with the guy. So that is coming up next here on the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast.
When the morning breaks, highlights every single mistake we made.
All right, this is our first interview here on the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast. I've got Pod from Deforesters. Thank you for joining the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, no problem. So you guys are getting ready to release your new album, first full length. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, it's coming out later this month on Black Numbers.
Absolutely.
So this is your second release with them, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. The first was an EP last year. Sorry, a year and a half ago now. 2015.
So how'd you guys get hooked up with Black Numbers?
Our friend Steve, who also is our producer and de facto manager, and buddy, he's done some work with Black Numbers before, so he talked to Dave about it, and Dave liked the record, and we were kind of talking about doing vinyl for a while, but the likelihood of us being able to tour got smaller and smaller, so it was kind of made the most sense to just keep it digital for the time being, just because if we're not on tour, you're not selling records and stuff out the front door.
Yeah, that is true. So you've been in a couple other bands before, right?
I have, yeah.
Okay. So when did you first learn to play music and start writing your own stuff? Hey, you there?
Hello. Hey, sorry, I don't know what happened there.
No worries. That's what happens with technology. So
yeah.
So when did you first learn to play music and start writing your own stuff?
I guess Sean and I, the rhythm guitar player in the band, we started playing guitar together when we were 13, 14 or so, and we started a band that was kind of like Paint by Numbers, Lookout era pop punk, along the lines of like Screeching Weasel and stuff. That was in high school. We released a 7-inch and like a CD EP and stuff, but it was all, put it this way, a lot of that stuff is, I think, records buried in people's, in boxes in people's basements at this point, and I'm totally okay with that. Yeah. So yeah, it's been a long time.
So how did this band get together?
Well, Sean, Chris, and I were in it's kind of like a bluegrass punk band, maybe 5 years ago, and that band had 6 members, and it was almost impossible to do anything. Like literally, it was like between everyone's jobs and girlfriends, boyfriends, and just general other commitments. It was just every time we were getting offers to do stuff, we were declining them, and this went on for like months and months. So that band kind of dissolved, and we were looking to do something that was a little more back to basics. And I had worked with Zach at a local brewery, and we had talked about jamming a bunch of times, and we just kind of got together and it clicked, and yeah, it was good.
Very nice. Now, what was that other band called? Because that just sounds fascinating. I love bluegrass, and I love punk. Yeah.
It was called Snake Oil Salesman of Southern Ontario. It was kind of along the lines of Larry and His Flask, but with a little more traditional songwriting.
Oh, nice.
So, kind with more of like the influence of like, say, Hank Williams and Bill Monroe and that kind of style of songwriting. It's very verse-chorus, which is not terribly different from Deforesters in a lot of ways in terms of the basic structures of the songs. Verse-chorus, bridge kind of thing.
Right.
Say Beatles, too.
Okay, very nice. Now, for folks who have never heard Deforesters, how do you describe your music?
I'd say pop punk, but like a little more rough around the edges, maybe. They're just pop songs that we play a little more loudly, I think, than how they would normally be played. I mean, we're influenced by a lot of stuff, like from classic rock to kind of classic Tin Pan Alley country, that kind of stuff. And then obviously there's a heavy 80s and 90s pop punk influence in there too, but I mean, at the end of the day, to me, it just sounds like pop music that's played, a lot louder and faster.
I can see that. I think a lot of times folks don't realize the similarities between just straight pop music and punk and classic rock, and because structurally they're all so similar. I think I was in I think I was in high school, and I was listening to a tape that had on one side had the Descendants Liveage, on the other side had the Sex Pistols album. And then I was listening to those, and I think I heard, like, Hey Jealousy on the radio, and then a Poison song. And I was like, there's really no difference between any of these at all.
Yeah. It's like a pizza with different toppings on it, It's
exactly. That's
crust,
a great...
sauce, cheese.
That's a great way to put it. Now, Nick, you mentioned earlier that you guys don't really tour. Is that just work? You guys can't get out and hit the road?
Well, Zach being in pop, that band takes up an enormous amount of his time, as it should, and our band was always kind of supposed to be a hobby.
Okay.
And so the rest of us, other than Zach, have jobs. Some of us are very, very busy with work. So, we were talking about doing a European tour for a while. Our friend Casper is, he books for Panther Booking in Europe, and we were trying to get a tour together, and it was like we just kind of kept pushing it back, and eventually it was just like, okay, this is just going to go on hold for a while, and maybe someday it'll come back. But just between everyone's various commitments and stuff, it's really, really hard to find the time to do anything. I mean, that's the biggest challenge our band has is finding time to do stuff where that works for all four of us simultaneously.
That's understandable, man. People don't realize you become an adult and, like, your time just disappears.
Absolutely, yeah.
I keep telling my kids, I've got a couple of teenagers, and my son was saying he's really big into doing stuff on YouTube, and he was saying basically about I might put off college if this YouTube thing blows up. I'm like, yeah, don't put off too long, because that adulthood creeps up, and
yeah, totally.
You get responsibilities. You can't do crap anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the band that Sean and I were in previously, the band was more of a priority in our lives, and it made the band a lot less fun. And to me, I would rather focus on, and I think everyone else in the band would rather focus on our livelihoods and that kind of thing, and just having a regular adult life, and then do the band on the side. And it stays a lot more fun that way when there's not pressure to be like, oh, how are we gonna be able to afford to go on tour again? How are we gonna afford to make sure there's gas in the tank of the van? How are we gonna afford insurance on the van, kind of thing?
Yeah, that I can't imagine the expenses and everything to go on the road in this day and age. It's got to be tough.
Sure, yeah. I mean, definitely our old band, we would, it was sleeping on floors, which, I mean, a lot of successful bands are sleeping on floors these days, I think. But it's sleeping on floors, and, like, I remember our first American tour, we played, like, a week of shows the first week, and we didn't get paid for one of them.
Oh, shit.
That was an incredibly unlucky streak, but it was still, I mean, it makes it puts a very real, like, shit, how are we going to do this? Kind of, it starts weighing on your mind.
So, as far as your local scene there, you're in Canada, correct?
Yeah, Toronto.
How is the scene there?
Oh, it's good. Toronto's a massive metropolitan city. I think it's third largest in North America. So, it's not. I wouldn't call it particularly tight-knit over the whole city, but I mean, we have tons of friends. There's tons of great bands in this city, and everyone kind of sticks together. And I mean, it's good. I think there's pretty good attendance at shows. It's different from being in a small town or something where, you know, there's one or two people driving the whole thing, but you still do have those people. Our friend Vince is friends with us, he's friends with Pup, and a band called Pew 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 Gunshots. And he lets our bands practice in his basement in his house. In Toronto, rehearsal spaces are very expensive, so you're looking at, for one small space, you're looking at like $1,000 a month.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So bands, you know, they share rehearsal spaces, and it's like, okay, Deforesters has Monday night, Gunshots has Tuesday night, kind of thing. And he has a house and he has a basement, and he lets us kind of practice in his basement for, you know, we give him a case of beer every once in a while. So it's
That's
like
awesome.
Having people like that is like very. It makes it a lot easier to be in a band in a city like this with like really, really high prices on everything.
Well, that's very cool. And those are all three excellent bands. So he's just got to be sitting upstairs enjoying listening to practice. That I'd love that. So the new record that you guys are putting out later this month, what tell us about that? I know there's at least one song that was on the previous EP, the opening track.
Yep.
And which I love that song. I've got to say, I love that
thank
EP.
you. Thank you.
I listen to that on a very regular basis, and it's just excellent. So I was very excited to hear the new record, and it is great. It is just as good as the two previous EPs. I can't wait for other people to hear it. It is really, really good.
Thank you very much.
Oh, no problem. How was this a long writing process, or what was the process of putting this one together?
Well, I mean, our writing process is pretty. It's pretty easy. I bring kind of partial songs into rehearsals. Like I bring in a couple sets of like verses. Like I'll bring in like a verse, chorus, melody, some lyrics, chord progressions, and then we just kind of workshop it into a real song. Over the chorus, it's usually pretty quick. We all click very well. It's pretty natural, and then we generally work on a bridge together. But sometimes I kind of sketch out the bridge in advance. But it's nice. I mean, it's a very collaborative process, and I've never really been in a band that's been so collaborative. But it's been really, really rewarding in a lot of ways, and I'm really happy that we're doing it this way.
That's cool. Do you think the fact that it is such a part-time thing helps to foster the collective nature of the writing process and everything?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say so. Yeah.
Cool. And so I do have to ask, you guys are, I'm guessing, very big Star Trek fans?
We're pretty big Star Trek fans. Yeah, I mean, I would say so. Zach, Sean, and I definitely. It's funny how a friend of mine who's a tattoo artist did this painting called Deforestation, and it was kind of a picture of DeForest Kelley, who played Dr. Leonard McCoy on the original Star Trek, standing in kind of a field where all the trees had been cut down, and there was a big tractor and stuff, and we made a T-shirt of it, or we were going to make a T-shirt of it, and we were like, well, let's just call the band Deforesters, and that theme has continued. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to come up with a band name, and I find the older you get, the more it's like, well, whatever, let's just not come up with anything too absurd at face value, and, you know, move on, because it can take months to come up with a band name that really that, you know, hits on every single level that you want, and it's much easier to just be like, let's find something that's kind of fun and go from there. At the end of the day, people don't really, when you first hear a band name, right, you think like, oh, what does that mean? What you think about what kind of clues that name gives you about the music, but then when you actually hear the music, you stop thinking about that.
Yeah. You have to admit, the first time when I first heard you guys was when the self-titled EP was released, and the name didn't click with me for the longest time, and then it still didn't even click with me after I got your debut, Bones, and it took me a while before I realized, oh, holy crap, this is a DeForest Kelley reference, and it's freaking awesome. Just like the new record is called Leonard, which I love that. I think that's awesome. I grew up on Star Trek. I always loved DeForest Kelley, and so I'll tell you this story. Years ago, this was back in the mid to late 90s. I was living in an apartment, and my then girlfriend, who's now my wife, would come over and hang out. And at the time, there was a music video channel you got through Antenna TV that it was called The Box, and you could call up and request videos, and they would constantly play Bone Thugs and Harmony's Thuggish Ruggish Bones, constantly.
Okay.
And Emily, my wife, said, I want to make a T-shirt that says Thuggish Ruggish and has a picture of Dr. McCoy.
Yeah.
And I thought it was
That's
the
good.
funniest shit ever. And glad you laughed, because half the time I tell that joke to people, they're like, what?
Yeah.
So yeah. So how did you first get into punk rock?
I grew up in a town called St. Thomas, Ontario. It's kind of a little factory town near London, Ontario, right by Lake Erie. And there was a local band playing. I was like 12 years old, and I went to I don't even know what it was, but it was like hosted by the local high school, and they had this band playing called Shove, and they were a local punk band, and they played a bunch of Screeching Weasel songs, and I just was like blown away. I'd never heard music like that before. My dad's really into prog rock, and so I grew up hearing prog rock and classical around the house as a kid, and I remember always really liking simple music. I remember the scene in Back to the Future where Michael J. Fox plays Chuck Berry. I remember being like, oh my God, I can't believe, I just never heard music like that before that was so simple and straight to the point and straightforward. So when I heard this local band playing Screeching Weasel covers, it kind of hit on the same level, where it was like fast and simple, and very powerful because of that. I think because so much of the music I had been listening to just peripherally was so complex and progressive.
Yeah, that actually makes complete sense with the whole Chuck Berry thing, because Screeching Weasel essentially is just the Ramones from Chicago. And,
yeah, totally.
And the Ramones were really, really wanted to be, in a lot of ways, the Beach Boys, and the Beach Boys were white guys trying to be Chuck Berry from California.
Absolutely, yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean, that's something that I feel like nobody gets about the Beach Boys, is that they basically took Chuck Berry and put layered vocal harmonies over top of it and sang about surfing, but it was very, very heavily influenced by early rock and roll, and I feel like maybe we don't hear that listening to it in today's context, because it just kind of sounds like the Beach Boys when you focus about the fact that they're singing about cars and stuff. But
exactly,
yeah.
Especially depends on which Beach Boys you hear, because there's Surfing USA Beach Boys, and then there's Pet Sounds, and then there's Kokomo.
Yeah.
And how these all came from the same group of dudes is kind of is unbelievable. But yeah, that early, because the early punk bands, especially the Ramones, were just going back to looking at that old rock and roll, the original stuff from the 50s and early 60s, and playing that on speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Little Richard and all that kind of stuff, and then the 60s, the Ronettes and the Shangri-Las.
Exactly.
I feel like that's another thing that maybe people don't hear in the context now. And I mean, I guess maybe a lot of those bands I heard because I looked into the stuff that the Ramones were listening to and went back and checked it out later on.
Great minds. I did that as well when I got really into punk and all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. I learned the history, and I think that's something that's very lost today. Of course, this was all pre-internet for me because I'm an old fart.
Yeah.
And reading stuff in rock and roll history books and whatnot.
But
it's interesting. Now that you mentioned Screeching Weasel, I hadn't thought of Screeching Weasel when I was listening to your music. It makes sense. When I hear your stuff, the first thing that kind of comes to mind is if I'm going to throw out a comparison, okay, these guys remind me of Nothington.
Yeah.
And I don't know if how much of that is just the gruff vocals, but I really enjoy it. And again, Nothington's not that it's that far away from Screeching Weasel. It's all 3 chords and basic rock and roll. Do you have a favorite song on the new record?
On the new Nothington album?
No, on your new record.
Oh, on our new record. Oh, okay. I don't know. No. Yeah, I guess I've never thought about it. I think maybe the one that we released as a single, which is called "What Do You Want on Your Tombstone." I like that one a lot. It came out really moody, and I think is pretty different, and I like that. And yeah, I mean, there's actually in the chorus there's we went for they're kind of really in the background, but Beach Boys harmonies. Like there's like a 3-part layered ooh in the background of the chorus, and I always kind of look for ways to insert those kind of Beach Boys moments into songs, and I think they usually get kind of lost, but they're there for me. So I was happy that we got to do that on that one.
Well, I like the harmonies that you guys do. Even though you've got a gruff edge, it is still very melodic. So people really, when this record comes out on Black Numbers, folks, you really need to go check it out. It's called Leonard. The band is Deforesters. Did you have anything else you wanted to talk about before we get out of here? I know you're busy at work. I don't want to take up too much of your time. No,
I think that's it. I mean, thank you so much for having me on. It's been a great talk. It's nice. It sounds like we share a lot of the same musical kind of starting points. So that's cool.
Definitely, yeah. It's been absolutely my pleasure. The band is Deforesters. They're all over the internet, and the record comes out on February 25th. Is that correct?
Yes, February 25th.
So check it out. Are you guys going to be doing any playing? Are you going to hit the fest this year or anything?
If they ask us, I mean, we'd love to go do it again. I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm scared of crossing the border right now with the President of the United States. But
I do not blame you.
Yeah, it's crossing the border was scary. Scary enough when Obama and George W. Bush were president. So I feel like I'm nervous hearing all these things. I mean, we're not a marginalized group or anything, but it's still. I mean, those guys have a lot of power, and it can be a little bit scary.
Yeah, that's true. Well, hopefully you guys will get to come down and play some, and if not, we get to enjoy the record. So again, thank you for your time, folks. Go check it out, and we're going to play that single right now on the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast.
For all the crossroads of Kensington, for all the douchebags of King Street West, for all the granddads of Rexdale, I wouldn't trade you. For all the projects in Regent Park, Jarvis hookers and Bay Street suits, forever he has all the business means. I wouldn't trade you.
sheep again. I forget how far I get. All I know is that I'm not tired yet. Closed Venn diagram, repeat ad nauseum. The soapy cloning hearts, these meds they have their charms. All I need is a healthy diet and some peace and quiet. Not the answer, take it just the same. Not one predictor, no sleep for us again.
up in the house where I live alone. Can we just
was Joe McMahon from last year's Another Life album with Canadian Graffiti. Before that was Grieving from their Demonstrations EP with No Sleep. And Oklahoma's own The Gnomes from Pronounced Nirvana with All Right. And before that, coming out of the interview, we had Municipal Geography Lesson, song by Deforesters from their new album Leonard. Thanks again to Pod from Deforesters for coming on the show. It was a great pleasure, and I appreciate him taking time out of his day. He was obviously busy doing things at work, and he took time out of it to talk to us, so that was really freaking cool. That's pretty much going to do it for this week of the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast. We do have one last thing to do. We're going to take the show out with the band Lights in Motion from their new album Dear Avalanche. The song is called Feathers. Now, Lights in Motion is, you say it's a band, but it's one guy, and it's a cinematic post-rock project, and everything I've heard from this group is incredible. And this is stuff I normally wouldn't be into because it's epic. Well, no, I like epic stuff. It's not simple 3-chord rock and roll like we talked about in the interview. It's more complex stuff, but I can't turn away. It's amazing. This guy should be doing scores for big Hollywood blockbuster movies. He is that talented. So, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I've got a giveaway. The great folks at the record label Deep Elm, God almighty, I could not remember my own name there for a minute. Deep Elm Records, they hooked us up with some free copies of the Lights in Motion Dear Avalanche record on digital downloads. So I think what we're going to do for this week, anyone who, at least the first 10 people who like us on Twitter and send me a tweet with the hashtag OLP for Oklahoma Lefty Podcast giveaway. That's hashtag OLP giveaway at Oklahoma Lefty. That's the handle there on Twitter. So you have to send us the tweet and follow us on Twitter, or follow me on Twitter, I should say. And I will hook you up with the Lights in Motion record, and it is awesome. I can't say enough good things about it. It is so freaking good. But here's a taste of it. Again, the song is called Feathers, Lights in Motion. This has been the Oklahoma Lefty Podcast. Thanks for listening, everyone. Take care.
Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a structural engineer.